Witches of Worm is a Gothic novel featuring a 12-year-old girl named Jessica. She has deep-rooted psychological issues resulting from her parental abandonment, which causes her to lash out at everyone around her. Yep, this is a Newbery Award winner, all right.
Argofont Book Review, Argofont Book Review.
Jessica's mother is Joy, and she's never around. She's always working or dating her boyfriend. Whenever she is home, she either criticizes Jessica or offers fake apologies. On a stormy day, Jessica hides in a secret cave and reads a book about the witches of Salem. She discovers a disgusting gray kitten. She calls it Worm because it looks more like a worm than a cat. Jessica hates Worm and says mean things to him. She doesn't know why she takes care of him instead of letting him die. If any kids are watching this video in order to get help with the book report, I would recommend comparing the way Jessica treats Worm with the way Joy treats Jessica. There are some interesting literary parallels to be drawn there. Worm doesn't play like other cats, he mostly sits and stares. Sometimes Jessica has pretend conversations with Worm. One day she tries to jump out and scare Worm, but she scares herself by noticing his evil face and devil hair. Worm warns her about a neighbor, and Jessica is terrified that Worm talked for real. Magical talking cats are okay for cartoon shows, but in real life, they're the stuff of nightmares. Although, let's be honest, if cats could talk, they'd mostly complain about wanting to be fed. After school, Jessica has a run-in with her former friend, Diane. Diane abandoned Jessica in order to hang out with a cool girl with a swimming pool. Diane makes up a fake story about why she can't spend time with Jessica anymore. Jessica complains to Worm. Worm encourages her to check with Diane's mother. So Jessica calls and makes up a story about Diane in order to get her into major trouble. At first, Jessica is scared that her cat is encouraging her to do bad things, but she eventually decides Diane deserved it for being a bad friend. It happens again. Worm encourages Jessica to make up a story in order to scare a neighbor. The neighbor's terrified, but she soon catches Jessica in the lie. Jessica instinctively throws her hands up in a defensive position. The neighbor worries that she's crazy, so Jessica goes along with it. She pretends to be sick and confused, unsure of what's going on. Throw in the fact that Mom doesn't care, and Jessica gets out of trouble. Worm says he's a witch's cat. Jessica wonders who the witch could be, and my money is on the crazy old lady who openly believes in magic powers. Joy plans to take a trip to meet her boyfriend's parents. Jessica resents being left behind. With Worm's prompting, Jessica ruins Joy's fancy new dress. Again, Jessica gets out of trouble by pretending not to remember anything. If I had tried that when I was 12, it wouldn't have worked on my parents. Joy forces Jessica to meet with the school counselor. Jessica frets the whole time, trying to think of the right things to say, which will fool him into thinking she's a normal girl who made 2 mistakes, as opposed to a girl who is occasionally possessed by her demon cat. Jessica does a good job seeming normal until the end when she's asked to write a story about people in a park. Jessica writes about a baby that everyone admires, but no one notices when it's abandoned. The night grows colder and darker, and the baby dies alone, covered with leaves. Jessica thinks it's a good story, which will show there's nothing wrong with her. No! That is a creepy story! I would be worried if a child wrote a story like that as a metaphor for her own existence. The only other kid at the apartment complex is a boy named Brandon. He and Jessica had a falling out a year ago. Brandon is distracted by a friend and leaves his trumpet on the windowsill. Jessica pushes it off after Worm tells her to. The witch lady sees the whole thing, and she doesn't fall for Jessica's amnesia routine. She insists that Jessica tell the truth. Worm suggests murdering the old woman, and Jessica plots how to do it until she's interrupted. Jessica asks the witch lady for help with Worm, which is quite a change from attempted murder. She gets a book with an exorcism ritual. Jessica performs it on Worm, who struggles the entire time. When it's done, Worm runs like a bat out of hell. Jessica and Brandon chase Worm to a construction site where he falls down 3 stories. Surprisingly, for an award-winning children's book, Worm is still alive. Jessica and Brandon work out their differences. Jessica has spent the entire book thinking about him, and I have to say it was a disappointment to finally learn why they started fighting. He had other friends over that day, so he told her to go away. She thought he meant go away forever. Yeah, so they stopped talking for a full year after that. It was just a sitcom-style misunderstanding. That feels like an out-of-place resolution for a book with a demon cat. The end. Post-book follow-up. The title confuses me. Witches, plural? There is more than one witch in the story controlling Worm. Who are they? It's suggested that Jessica was a witch the whole time, without knowing it, but that doesn't explain who the other witch is. While reading, I couldn't help but compare this book to Edgar Allan Poe's The Black Cat. Both stories leave it up to the reader to decide if something supernatural is happening, or if the main character is having a mental breakdown. Once I realized the cat was convincing Jessica to do worse and worse things, I realized there were only 2 possible endings, murder or exorcism. The book flirts with murder for 2 pages and never addresses the issue again. I think Poe's story is superior because it goes to the extreme of murder, which fits the dark drama. Also, Poe's story is way shorter. I thought this book was too long and slow. That's my main complaint. It's hard to get through this book because not much happens. It's mostly Jessica by herself. I think it's halfway through the book when Worm convinces her to do something bad. That's how slow-paced it is. I didn't enjoy reading a slow-paced, creepy novel, even one with literary merit. It's not my cup of tea, so I'm probably going to give it a lower rating than it deserves. I will rate the illustrations a 10 out of 10. They are nightmare images in black and white. They were so creepy and fantastic. I give The Witches of Worm a 3 out of 10.